What's up there, summoners? This time I wanted to discuss something different. Even though I've done the top 10 splash arts already, I want to talk about the League of Legends splash arts that have changed during the 5 to 6 years when this game has been out. I won't go each one individually though, just the ones that have got the most changes, as I'll be judging them whether I like them or not. So excuse me, princess, if I happen to not like the one of the splash arts you might do. Anyways, my name is Apodix and hope you enjoy.
It's over 9,000!
Okay, so I got quite a list here as I'm focusing to the classic splash arts the most, as the first one we're looking at here is Alistar. This is the first splash art of his and it looks very classy to me and brings nostalgia to the table too. Very simple looking but works perfectly. Until later it got changed into this one. Ooh. This one is pretty cool looking too. It shows him pulverizing in the picture as it represents him well. But that's not the latest one though. It got changes into this, which I got few words to say for. The newest splash art has too realistic look into it in my opinion, leaving the more cartoonish look to the dust, which has happened to the many newer splash arts, and I personally don't like it as I'm more into the old ways of art. It's not a horrible picture, it just represents Alistar differently and I don't like it as much as the other ones, to be honest. Next up we got the bird. Brr Nivea. Her first splash looks like this and it's very simple looking but plain and nice overall, I like it. However, it got changed into this picture and it clearly has that more realistic mood into it and it looks pretty cool, can't argue with that. It's usually just that when you're used to something like that older splash art, you have to get used to the new one and it hurts a bit in the inside for the nostalgia reason. Moving on next, we got Annie and her first splash art. Wow, this is really old school indeed. Again, very plain and simple look here, but later on they changed the splash art to this one, which is personally my favorite one from the three. This one has a nice atmosphere around Annie and how Tibur shows up in the back, it's just pure awesome. Also there are some toys here like the Red Baron Corki seen here, which is cool reference too. Later on though, the splash art got turned into this, which is pretty nice looking too, but nowhere near close to the second art in my opinion. I am also really glad that they changed the Red Riding Annie skin splash art, as I really dislike the original, but the new one has more anime style look into it and it looks pretty, no doubt. Next one is the Ashe and her first splash art looks very simple as you can see, but luckily it gets better from here on as it turned out to this splash art and it's definitely a step to the better direction. However, there is a third splash art that is the current one and looks like this. Here Ashe has a more of a combat position as she's about to launch one of her arrows instead of posing in the right corner. It's a well executed picture and I'm actually kind of satisfied with this look overall. Good job. Moving on to Blitzcrank and his first splash. This is absolute classic, no denying that, and I still like it even to this day. But what happened later on is that it got turned into this, which isn't bad looking either, but for some reason I still prefer the classic one. Brand is also a champion that has got only one artwork change so far. The original here is very nostalgic to me and even today looks awesome. The current splash art is also very sweet as Brand shows his fire potential here better, and it's hard for me to decide which one rules over as both of them are quite nice looking. Next one I got here is Caitlyn. The original has very plain look into it, simple but works well. The updated splash shows more of the Caitlyn's role as she's sniping someone from the tower, which is what she excels for, shooting targets from long distances. Overall satisfied with this splash art too. Cassiopeia has gotten plenty of changes into her classic looks as the original looks like this. Wow, it sure is memorable indeed. Next up came up this one, which is okay, but for some reason I like the original the best. Why is that? Is because the current splash isn't any better, just take a look. Sure, the details are here more accurate and it's put more effort into it, but I just find this kinda derpy personally and really do not like it that much in fact. Ezreal has also gotten quite many changes to him. The first one again is very plain but simple looking and works well overall. The second splash art shows Ezreal a bit different style put into it, and I actually prefer the first one over this. However, the third and the current one has more combat look into it and also is much more realistic than the two others. Looks pretty sweet, but I still like the original too. The next one is Fiora as we look up the original splash art, which is this. I like this art as it's not too complicated, but what happened after the rework is just... I got 3 words for this new picture. What the fuck? Why her hair is black and pink now instead of black and red? Also, the look is more detailed, yes, but it doesn't give me the same vibes as the original did, and unfortunately, I think this was a letdown, at least for me personally. Gangplank has also got a big overhaul with his classic looks. First splash art is another classic, which has that pirate mood into it. Arrgh! The next one is quite catchy too, as the pose and the background together fits for a nice splash art here. But what happened next is that Riot changed the art to this one, which was only available for a short time as it got turned into Captain Gangplank's skin art. But what they replaced with that is just next level of garbage, sorry guys. I just can't get over this picture. It's so radically different from the other ones, and to me it doesn't even look like there's a Gangplank in this picture, and therefore it's another letdown for me. Heimerdinger and his first splash art is very memorable again, as I almost forgot there was a reworked photo to this one. The newer one definitely has that realistic mood into it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the nostalgia overcomes again as I like the original much more. Janna has gotten some art changes in the past, as the first splash art here is very old school as you can see. This one got changed later into this, which is again my favorite splash even though it's not the newest one. And here is the current picture. It looks okay to me, but it doesn't have that same mood into it compared to the second art. Karthus only has gotten one splash art change to his classic looks, but since they're so different I wanted to include him as well. The first one again being very plain and simple. As we take a look at the reworked version, it just looks like a character from Dota 2 or something else, but nothing like Karthus to me. Sorry to say, but I'm not into this new style of fashion here. Moving on to Katarina, as we got couple changes here too. The first splash is really sweet even despite its simple looks. The one that came after is the one I like the most. The details here are better and overall Katarina looks more badass with the background combined. But it didn't stop here, as they wanted better graphics and published the current photo that looks like this. It's an okay splash art for Katarina, but the second one has more vibe into it in my opinion. Next up is Kayle and her super old splash art. Oh, this is a bit clunky, but it still has that nostalgia in it. After that they made this splash art, which is freaking gorgeous, as the atmosphere and everything fits just perfect for Kayle. I just can't understand why they had to change that to this one, as it looks more darker and just plain stupid. Put the second one back in. Maokai is one of those pics that's classic looks have been reworked only once. Again, this first picture has a very straightforward look in it, which works okay. The updated version puts Maokai in the more realistic position again, which I necessarily don't really mind, but the original is always original, that's for sure. Morgana has gone through plenty of changes too. The first one again is kinda plain looking again, as she looks a bit pissed off. Don't know why though. The next splash changed her appearance quite a bit, as the overall presence here is much better. The last and the current splash is also a step further, as the details are even more accurate than ever. At first glance I got terrified by that face, but in a longer run I've gotten used to it, as the picture is quite well executed in total. Renekton and his first splash art is something I really miss nowadays. Even despite the picture's simplicity, I like this one a lot. But then it got changed into this one, and I just can't help myself but to say that it's not as good as the first one. Luckily they've had one more rework to the classic splash, which ended up being this and looks okay overall. I still miss the first splash art, as I find that to be my favorite of the bunch. Shaco's first splash art is an absolute classic too, which I've been also yearned for. It didn't stop there though, as Riot again wanted better graphics and ended up with this one. The current one is pretty solid looking too, but it's unarguable that the nostalgia wins again, as I'd still rather go with the old picture. Long time ago, Sion used to be a simple bursty AP caster, as his classic looks looked like this. Very greenish picture, I gotta admit, but it represents Sion pretty okay. After the rework though, they had to change the photo to this one, which is quite badass looking indeed. This time the newer one is better for me, as I'm very happy to these changes overall. Next up we have Taric and his splash art. Ah ha ha! Kappa, just kidding man, this is the real one. This splash art I like better from the two, mostly because Taric's face looks more authentic to me. The newer splash art has that weird face going on, and I don't really like that as much as the original. Tristana, what a yordle we have here! The first splash art was an instant classic, as it brings a lot of memories to me, but the next one I like even more, as the details on Tristana are even more enhanced and that background is very cool too. But the newest one is just completely different experience to me. Like, what the hell happened here? Why Tristana's face looks like ultra derp, and even that new voice they added to her just half ruined the marksman experience for me, which is sad because she's quite viable when executed well. Moving on to Urgot, which has gotten only one classic splash art change. The first one is really solid looking and works well, and the second one is okay too, but again, I can't seem to enjoy this one as much as the older splash art. Veigar has a plenty of changes to him in the classic looks industry, as the first one brings me a ton of memories, and probably even to this day, I like the first one the most. The second art shows Veigar within a different position, and it's also well done picture too. The latest one though takes the details to a whole new level, as Veigar really looks a lot different here compared to the previous two, but the new one is still also illustrated quite well, as in a total I think all of those three are well executed forms of art. Next up is Wukong, whose original splash looks like this, and it really works out for the Monkey King. The newer one again has more detail put into it, but Wukong's face is a bit messed up in my opinion, as I prefer the first one over these two. The last splash art I wanted to show you is the Xerath's classic looks. This first one is great and has that aura in it, which makes it kind of special for me. The updated splash however shows Xerath's details even further, as it is quite okay overall, but I still prefer the original due to nostalgia again. Alright, so that covers up my splash art changes video, hope you enjoyed. There are plenty of other splash arts that have changed, and there will be plenty in the future that will change. It's just that I wanted to show you the basic overview that how the art style has changed within these past years of League of Legends. Anyways, that's about it. My name is Apodix and have a nice day.